What are the best rank 1 primal spells in Pathfinder 2nd edition? Which ones are they? And how many primal spells do I need to cast before I become as powerful as this mud wizard? Seriously, look at this guy. He's the most powerful druid in all of creation. This is the Dominomicon, authored and hosted by me, Dominic. The Dominomicon is dedicated to all nerdy things, with my current obsession being the TTRPG Pathfinder 2nd edition. In this video chapter, I'm continuing my top 20 spells series for Pathfinder 2e, finally finishing off the traditions with primal spells. This hopefully means that new players who are coming into the system don't have to look through a giant list of spells to figure out which ones are best, and can go look at my rank 1 list, as that was the plan when I started this with the Arcane video 8 billion years ago. I'll be going into the rules for this list shortly, but if you find this video chapter helpful and or enjoyable, please give it a like and consider subscribing, joining as a member, or taking a look at my Patreon. All support as ever is incredibly welcome. But for now, let's summon up some earth, wind and fire to start the music. Okay, this top 20 list is, of course, for Primal Tradition only, and it's going to follow the same rules as the previous ones, which I'll quickly summarize here. If you're confused, you can probably just go quickly watch the Arcane one, as I do a deeper explanation of the rules there. So, no mythic spells, and I'm going to be including every spell from all PF2E sources in no particular order. I'll do a brief runners-up at the end, and I'll be including all rarities. I'm also going to be trying to type each spell: damage, support, control, debuff, and utility. Some spells may have multiple types, and you'll be looking at spells that are mostly good for this current rank, which makes sense as this is a video talking about rank 1 spells. This isn't all going to be damage-based spells. I'm going to pick, hopefully, a variety in there. Heightening will be considered, but as I said, not a main reason for me to pick a spell. And apologies when you see spells that pop up that haven't been remastered yet. They may have some traits that you're not aware of, but don't worry, they're all still valid within PF2E. And as I said before, there is going to be some unfortunate crossover because a lot of these spells are available in multiple traditions. I will give a brief explanation about them, as you may not have seen in my other videos. Insert passive-aggressive comment about that here. To briefly go over the Primal Tradition, I think it has a variety of everything in there, although generally I feel like it has a bit more blasting in there than most traditions other than Arcane. But it's got plenty of healing spells, debuff spells, a little bit of utility, control, etc. It's a bit of everything in there, as I said, which makes sense because the druid generally in PF2E is seen as a bit of a jack of all trades, master of none. I will also say that the Primal Tradition is my favorite spell list. It's got Fireball and Heal in it. Do you need anything else? Like, ever? Honestly, it is just beautiful, and one of the reasons I love PF2E so much. Oh, and as ever, this is all my opinion, blah blah blah. My views may not be as factual as my amazing voice may make them seem, though my opinions matter more than most because I'm really cool and handsome and stuff. Plus, I'm really modest. Okay, let's begin the list. Animals and primal spells go hand in hand, or paw in hand, or paw in paw, or I guess it could be like flipper or wing in hand. Anyway, Animal Allies is a 2-action spell with a conjuration trait, which is a legacy trait. It's a 5-foot emanation that targets basic reflex saves, and you summon tiny ordinary animals from the environment around you, and they attack everything in that 5-foot emanation around you, dealing 3d4 piercing damage. This goes up by another 3d4 every rank, so it can actually add up, honestly. On top of that, it's just a really cool little spell. Imagine Snow White summoning forth animals, except she's going to do it to murder you. And that's basically what this spell is. Also, a 5-foot emanation could potentially hit up to 8 targets, and if you're large, that's going to be even more. Now, the spell says it lashes out at nearby foes, and then it says that they swarm around creatures in the area, so I'll probably make the argument that it only hits enemies, not allies, in which case it's pretty fantastic, because you don't have to worry about harming all of your best friends. And the fact that you're commanding these little animal allies with this magic effectively means that, yes, you wouldn't tell them to hit your allies unless you secretly hate them, which you probably do, let's be honest. So yeah, it's a fun damaging spell and a great way to start off this primal list. Next spell, please. From animals to trees, we have everything with primal magic. Protect a Tree is a 2-action spell with a concentrate, manipulate, plant, and wood trait. Has a range of 30 feet, lasts for a minute, and it grows a tree with 10 AC and 10 hit points. And whenever an ally adjacent to the tree is hit by a strike, the tree takes the damage first. It does not impede movement, but it does heighten pretty well with another 10 hit points every rank. Now, people who know much about wood kineticus will know that this spell is incredible when they use it, because they can do it every single turn. And that's great and everything, but it's only great because the spell itself is really cool. So despite the limited spell slots you would have using this as a caster, it's still effectively giving someone 10 health so long as they're adjacent to the tree, which is a decent chunk of HP at level 1 or 2. Plus, at the end of the spell's duration, the tree turns into a normal little tree, so you can potentially grow forests with this, which is lovely. Let's keep going. Everyone loves nettles, right? I mean, they make soup out of it. Does that stuff like sting you as you drink it? Surely it doesn't actually. Wait, what was I doing? Nettleskin is a 2-action spell with the uncommon plant and transmutation trait. It targets yourself and lasts a minute anytime you are hit with a melee or unarmed attack. The attacker takes 1d4 piercing damage, but that does also decrease the duration of the spell by 1 round, and it heightens 1d4 every rank. This is pretty cool. That damage can really add up, and yes, technically once you get hit around 10-ish times, probably less, it's gonna vanish, but hey, if an encounter lasts for 4 to 5 rounds and you get hit once every round and you're somehow not dead, that's 4 or 5 d4 piercing damage they've just taken, which is pretty awesome. Plus, you may get hit more than once per round, which is either lucky or unlucky depending on how you want to frame it. And yeah, bear in mind there's no saving throw here. If they hit you in melee, they take that damage. That's that. It's a fun little spell. I like it. On to one we're all expecting. Oh, heal, you beautiful, beautiful spell. I've gone over this one more in depth in my top 20 rank 1 divine spells and probably about 50 other times, so I'll just say this. It's the best healing spell in the whole system. It can heal at touch for 1 action, 30-foot range for 2 actions plus extra health restored, and it can do a big AoE 30-foot emanation that heals everything and harms undead. Just an incredible spell overall. If you ever want to heal anyone ever, or even yourself, just grab this. There's no reason not to. And I normally include harm as part of this spell as well, but did you know that harm is not on the primal list, because primal is about life and nature and that sort of thing? Interesting. Moving onwards. Whenever I read about this spell, for some reason, I have to go and make myself a cup of tea. Dehydrate is a 2-action spell with a Concentrate, Fire, and Manipulate trait. It's got a range of 30 feet, 5-foot burst, and it targets Fortitude and lasts for a minute. So you plop down this 5-foot burst, which can get up to 4 targets, which is not a lot, but still, those targets are going to take 1d6 persistent fire damage with a basic Fortitude save. If they become affected by Dehydrate, as in they fail that initial basic Fortitude save, at the end of each of their turns, before they roll to recover from the persistent damage, they have to roll another Fortitude save. On a success, they're good, but still have that persistent damage to deal with, and on a fail, they're enfeebled 1 until the end of their next turn, with them being enfeebled 2 on a crit fail. Enfeebled is a decent debuff for creatures that are strength-based, as it's going to reduce their attack rolls and damage potentially, plus the 1d6 persistent fire damage is pretty nice as well at such a low level. We're talking like 10 to 20% of their health on average every single round. That would be pretty good against a single creature, but the fact this is an area spell as well, I'm sorry, a small area, but still, that's just amazingly good. And it has a debuff attached to it as well. On top of that, if the creatures are water or plant-based, they get 1 degree of success worse than what they rolled, pretty easily making them critically fail, which is awesome. Persistent damage is always strong in PF2E, especially at those lower levels. It can just keep ticking and ticking and ticking, and DC 15 is not all that easy to achieve. A very cool spell. I guess it's more like a hot spell, but whatever. Speaking of hot... I bet you thought I was going to say something about me being too hot there, but I told you, I'm way too modest to say things like that. Breathe Fire is a 2-action spell with a Concentrate, Fire, and Manipulate traits that is a 15-foot cone and targets basic reflexes and deals 2d6 fire damage, and it heightens by another 2d6 every rank. I've mentioned this spell before, and that's because it's just a pretty good damaging spell. Nice and simple, it's a cone, it's fire damage, just don't hit your allies. It's just nice, we like it. Onto a classic, once again. The Fear spell is boring, and it's only boring because I've mentioned it 100 times because of how amazing it is. It's amazingly boring, if that makes sense. Okay, it's not actually boring whatsoever if you have no idea what I'm talking about. Fear is just an amazing spell because Frightened lowers every stat, and when you heighten it, it's even better. I'm just going to move on, take the spell, it's fantastic. If someone attacked me with this spell, I'd be really annoyed because Briny is not a nice smell. The Briny Bolt is a 2-action spell with the attack, concentrate, manipulate, and water traits, and is a range of 60 feet, targets 1 creature's AC. On a crit success, it deals 4d6 bludgeoning damage and makes the creature blinded for a round and dazzled for a minute. On a normal success, it's 2d6 and they're blinded for 1 round. They can spend an interact action on the crit success and success, wiping their eyes to end the blinded condition. This heightens a 2d6 every spell rank, so it basically doubles in damage. I think it's pretty good, because if you do manage to hit, they either just accept that they're blinded for a round, or they have to lose an action. So it hits an enemy, deals a decent amount of damage, and they're going to lose an action. And Interact is a manipulate action, so they're potentially going to trigger reactive strikes from your allies, or maybe even yourself if you have that ability. So yeah, you get to give them a whack as well when they clean their eyes, which is lovely. Well, not for them, obviously. Next spell is a cheating one, because I'm combining lots of them together. As I said with the Arcane, Divine, and Occult videos, there's a bunch of summoning spells that are pretty fun to use in this system, and every tradition has them. This one is going to be Summon Animals, Summon Fae, Summon Plant, or Fungus. I'm saying nothing about Summon Fungus. And some of these heightened are fantastic. I personally think that summoning creatures can be really cool because there's no save, they provide flanking, they can even take a couple of hits and even give a couple of hits. I don't know, they're pretty cool. And some get some cool abilities as well, especially as you heighten them. I'll leave that one there as I could make a whole video on summoning spells, which I may do at some point, so let's go next up. Time for a final attack. Horizon Thundersphere is a 2 to 3 action spell that targets one creature with a spell attack roll. Has the attack, electricity, and evocation traits. Again, that's legacy. I mentioned this in my top 20 rank 1 arcane spells video, so I won't go too much into it, but you can make this into either just a simple 2 action spell that hits an enemy, does 3d6 electricity damage, which is good damage. On a crit, they're dazzled as well, which is nice. Or you can do the 3 action version, which increases the range from 30 to 60 feet, and it means on a fail, it still deals half damage, which is a nice little bonus. And then you can also spend another 3 actions on the next round casting this to make it blow up and deal 2d6 electricity damage to all creatures in a 10-foot emanation basic reflex save. And then you also spark with electricity for a minute, dealing 1 electricity damage to creatures that grab or hit you, which is nice. It heightens pretty well, just basically doubles every rank. Lovely stuff. As I said, I already mentioned it, so I'm not going to go too much into it, but yeah, it's a pretty cool spell and it's got a kick-ass name. More lightning. Bring on the Thunder. Thunderstrike is a 2-action spell with the Concentrate, Electricity, Manipulate, and Sonic traits. It targets one creature within 120 feet with a basic reflex save, dealing 1d12 electricity damage and 1d4 sonic damage. And a target wearing metal armor or is made of metal takes a -1 circumstance penalty to its save. And those metal peoples are also clumsy for 1 round. This spell heightens pretty perfectly, 1d12, 1d4 every single rank. I did mention this in my arcane spells list video once again, and that's just because it's a nice, simple damaging spell. Save spells are always fun because even if they succeed, they still take half damage, which is good. Plus, it doesn't have multiple attack penalties, so if you have any martial capabilities, you can cast this and whack with no penalty. And nice and simple, let's keep going. Hooray for animals! Sacred Beast is a 2-action spell with a Concentrate and Manipulate trait with a range of 30 feet, and it's a 5-foot burst that targets basic reflex. This summons forth your deity's sacred animal or a thematic one, whichever one works more for you, and it deals 2d6 damage in that 5-foot burst. Again, it's going to be like 4 creatures in there maximum. And it heightens another 2d6 every rank. Pretty nice spell, nice and simple, a very blasty, very damagey, very area of effecty, cool spell, hence why it was on my divine spells list. So let's continue onwards. More evidence that the Primal Tradition has a little bit of everything in there. Charm is a 2-action spell with the Concentrate, Emotion, Incapacitation, Manipulate, Mental, and Subtle traits with a range of 30 feet that targets 1 creature with a will save, and it lasts for an hour. I have gone over this spell before, so I'm not going to go all that in depth into it, but on a fail, you can make a target friendly towards you or helpful if they already were friendly. On a crit fail, they cannot use hostile actions against you. It's not really something you'd use in combat because they get a +4 circumstance bonus to their save, but it's the sort of thing you use to convince a shopkeeper to sell you something for cheap, etc., or to tell those guards, no, I didn't actually punch that person who annoyed me. But yeah, fun little spell, quite a lot of use cases for it, but it's more of an out-of-combat social spell than anything. Time for some whimsy. Another spell I've gone over before, so I won't spend too long going over it once again. I personally think this is just a hilarious spell. Elysian Whimsy is a 2-action spell with the uncommon enchantment, incapacitation, and mental traits. It targets one creature within 30 feet with a will save, and you roll a d4, can have multiple effects depending on what you roll if they fail or critically fail. If you roll a 4, for example, I've mentioned this before because I think it's funny, they have to interact to pull out a non-magical item of value that they're carrying and release it. They just drop it onto the ground, which is hilarious. And on crit fail, they have to apologize for not giving you more on top of that. I just think this one's funny, kind of suits Primal perfectly, and it does steal actions from the enemy on top of that. Yeah, quite useful and silly at the same time, which is amazing. More whimsy, please. Yet another spell I've mentioned already. Grease is a 2-action spell with the Concentrate and Manipulate traits. It's got a range of 30 feet and has an area of 4 contiguous 5-foot squares or targets an object of 1 block or less and lasts for a minute. So briefly, you can make enemies fall over, or it works similarly to disarm when used on a weapon or something similar. I prefer the area one to make enemies fall over because there's nothing wrong with having enemies go prone. It's a bit of action theft, they'll be off guard, they could trigger reaction standing up. It's a good spell, you just gotta be clever about when you use it, because it may hit your allies as well, which I doubt they'd appreciate. Less whimsy, more murdery. Once again, this was in my arcane spells list video. Hydraulic Push is a 2-action spell with the attack, concentrate, manipulate, and water traits. It targets one creature or an unattended object within 60 feet, and it targets AC, deals 3d6 of bludgeoning damage, and knocks the target back 5 feet, or 6d6 on a crit and knocks them back 10 feet. And it heightens pretty perfectly, another 2d6 at every rank. People don't really like spell attack rolls that much in this system, but I still think these can be good, especially if you cast them up close, if they don't have Reckless Strikes, of course, because they might be off guard then, and then they have to spend another action moving towards you if you do hit them. So action theft. Plus the damage is pretty solid as well. 3d6 is nice. Potentially 18 damage for 2 actions. Not bad at all, and may cost them an action as well. Lovely stuff. Cast this one on the edge of a cliff and get a crit success, and goodbye enemy. Not every spell can one-shot like that. Speaking of gravity taking its toll on you, this was on my runners-up video for Arcane. Leaden Steps is a 2-action spell with a Concentrate, Manipulate, Metal, and Morph traits that targets one creature within 30 feet with a Fortitude save and is sustained up to a minute. On a success, the target is encumbered and weak 2 to electricity until the end of your next turn, and the spell ends there. But if they fail, they have the same effects for as long as you sustain the spell. On a crit fail, they are weak to electricity 3. When heightened, you increase that weakness by 1 each rank. Now, encumbered is pretty good because while they're encumbered, they're clumsy 1 and take a minus 10 foot penalty to all of their speeds. So that is giving someone a minus 1 on their AC, any dex-based attacks, any ranger spells, reflex save, and of course slowing them as well, which is pretty nice. I think it works a little bit better in Primal than Arcane because chances are you're going to have some cool electricity spells as well, such as if you're a druid and you have Tempest Surge. But yeah, pretty cool spell. But you know what else makes your feet feel heavy? What good primal spell list wouldn't have something to do with a swamp in there? Swampcall is a 2-action spell with the Uncommon Earth and Transmutation trait. Yes, that's a legacy spell. It has a range of 30 feet and it's a 10-foot burst and lasts for a minute. The area immediately becomes difficult terrain and creatures in the area when you cast the spell must attempt a reflex saving throw. On a success, nothing happens. On a fail, they take a minus 10-foot circumstance penalty to its speeds and they become off guard, and that lasts until they leave the area or until the end of their next turn. On a crit fail, the speeds are minus 15 instead of minus 10. They can swim through this if they do have a swim speed, however. So it only heightens to 3rd, but it's a decent size burst increase with better range. Honestly, I think the main reason I like this is because it makes them off guard. Like, making a bunch of creatures potentially off guard with 10-foot burst is just fantastic, especially if you have any ranged allies or ranged ally casters, etc. Or you can have your marshals stand outside of it and not have to flank because they're off guard, and rogues get sneak attack, etc. And it is difficult terrain, which is going to massively slow them down and potentially cost them actions. And that's no save for the difficult terrain, it just happens. So yeah, it can slow down enemies, make them off guard as well. I just think it's a really interesting, cool, debilitating spell. Onto the penultimate spell. Now, when I mentioned this in my top arcane spells video, I talked about how this spell is always roleplayed as a giant burp or a fart, and since that video, I have learned nothing, because that's how people flavor the spell. Now and always. Gust of Wind is a 2-action spell with the Air, Concentrate, and Manipulate traits. Is a 60-foot line, which is an impressive use of a sphincter, and it targets fartitude. It lasts until the start of your next turn, which is 6 seconds. We all wish they only lasted this long IRL. I've just realized that saying IRL is pointless, because in real life it's the same amount of syllables as IRL. It can knock creatures prone, and if they're flying, then they're knocked 30 feet in the wings direction and then knocked prone, and they take 2d6 bludgeoning damage. Just a cool spell, and it's roleplayed hilariously. Last but not yeast. The Yedic is primal spell list, and the last spell I did, I mentioned a smell, so it's like yeasty smell. Okay, yeah, I'll shut up. This is one of those spells that is deceptively strong in certain scenarios. Scouring Sand is a 2-action spell with the Uncommon Earth and Evocation traits, yes, legacy, and has a range of 60 feet, and it's a 10-foot burst sustained for up to a minute. Skipping past all the sentences before the main important sentence, which is the last one, each creature in the area when you cast the spell that ends its turn in the area as well must attempt a reflex save. On success, nothing happens. On a fail, they're dazzled for a minute or until they use an interact action to get the sand out of their eyes. On a crit fail, they're also blinded for their next action. When you heighten this to 3rd, you can move the center of it to a spot within range when you sustain it, and heighten to 6th, the range is 120 feet and it's a 20-foot burst. The reason I like this spell so much is because if you target just 3 creatures creatures with this, they are almost certainly going to be spending an interact action to get the sand out of their eyes. So that was 2 actions for you and 3 actions for them overall. And as it's a 10-foot burst, you can potentially target even more than that. It's actually up to 12 creatures. As I said, you're going to need to get at least 3 to have sort of broken the action economy for 1 turn, but never mind the crit fail effect as well that can happen. I just think it's a really, really cool spell. And if they just accept that they're dazzled, there's a 20% chance they're going to keep missing. And as I've said time and time again, that comes up a lot more often than you think. Either that or my flat d20 rolls are cursed. Right, that's the end of the big 20 spells list. Let's quickly go over the runners-up. Foraging Friends, because I think animals bringing you food is cute. Fleet Step, I prefer this to Tailwind. As I said in my arcane spells videos, I think Tailwind is a little bit overpowered. Conductive Weapon, Shock is a level 8 property rune, so getting this at level 1, even if only temporarily, is quite strong indeed. Speaking of those sorts of spells, Runic Body, Runic Weapon, etc., these are always a solid runners-up because they're decent buffs. Helpful Steps can be good for certain out-of-combat scenarios before you can fly, etc. Jump was on my arcane list, but I feel like primal casters such as Druid might not need to jump away from enemies as much as arcane casters like witches, sorcerers, etc. Mostly a personal preference thing though. Lose the Path can be fun to use a reaction and mess with an enemy's movement. Mud Pit, because I think Swampcall is slightly better, because they're off guard as well, but the range and area for Mud Pit is larger. And that's that. I have noticed that there's a lot of spells on the arcane list that are in the primal spell list as well, so it honestly might be worth checking out that video also. There's definitely more crossover between arcane and primal than I think any of the other traditions that I could see. Part of me didn't want to just repeat the same spells over and over again, because that'd make for a somewhat boring video if you've watched the arcane one, but at the same time, if this is the first one you're watching, because it's the first time you're playing the system, etc., maybe making a druid or whatever, you kind of need to know what the best spells are for a class like that. So yeah, this spell list is probably a little bit more druid oriented, but I still think it's generally got the best spells in here for rank 1. Again, it's all my opinion, so your mileage may vary. And thank goodness that's the end of my top rank 1 spells videos. I may move on to rank 2 eventually. My main goal, though, really was to give new players a hand when they're looking through the extremely large list of spells, and hopefully I've achieved that. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any spells that you think are amazing, rank 1 primal, please pop it in the comments and let me know about them. And if you have a new player joining the system as a caster, please share one of these videos with them to give them a helping hand, and also give me a helping hand. As of last week, the Dominomicon passed the 3K subs, which is utterly incredible. I never even thought for a second that we'd get to like 1,000 subscribers, let alone 3. So yeah, I'm absolutely flabbergasted at the warmth of this community, and I appreciate all of your comments, likes, subs, etc. really. That's gonna do it though. I would like to once again thank my amazing artist, Leandro Notado. A link to his portfolio will be in the description, and I'd like to thank my archivists and members: Max Magnus 20019, Ozzy Smith, Nikola Milenkovic, Kyle Travis, Bent Fair, and patrons and archivists Clash, Q, and Patrick O'Donoghue. You guys are all awesome. But for now, this is Dominic of the Dom Inomicon, wishing you all a fond farewell, and until next time, goodbye.